So they hired me to go in and pose as a possible patient. And I actually went in on the day of surgery just because we didn't want him to be able to say, oh, I was going to cancel the night before, and we didn't want to leave anything to the defense. So actually went all the way up into the point to right before I was administered any kind of sedatives and so forth. Hi, my name is Marcella Cava, and I own and operate Down Low Investigations. I have a whole team of retired agents, detectives, and so forth that work with me, and I'm out of South Florida. I had a case where a young female, she had just turned 18, and she was in Costa Rica, and she actually was claimed to have been raped in Costa Rica. So this ended up, they let the state authorities know, but the state said, look, this is an international case, you need to call the feds. The feds had collected the clothing and so forth and had an idea of who this individual was that perhaps raped this 18-year-old girl. But my family that hired me had money, and they didn't want to wait. They were quoted months and months and months for the possible DNA to come back on the clothing and so forth. And so again, for them, it wasn't about him going to jail. It was more of they wanted to let other people know what had happened. They wanted to know his exact identity, where he lived. They wanted to find out if he had kids, a wife, and so forth, so that they could warn him. So they sent me over to Costa Rica. I was able to get comparison DNA. My client had also saved something that we were able to compare and contrast and send out, to crime tech. So I was able to go there, get that. Did surveillance on the male individual, and we approached him. He admitted to being intoxicated severely and perhaps being too aggressive. He, of course, didn't admit to doing the rape, but we were able to let the Costa Rican authorities know. And he lost a lot of his licenses down there. And it made the family feel better that another woman out there wasn't going to get hurt, that they had done everything above and beyond what they could do. Now, I don't know what happened with the federal case. It's been about 2 years. I don't know what happened to it. I didn't follow it because I finished, my task and what I had to do. I was hired by the Rossen law firm. One of the clients had a medical procedure done, and the medical procedure was botched, completely botched. Not only botched, but had really bad side effects to what had happened. So they wanted me to look into this doctor. As I began looking into the doctor, I found out that this doctor was not a doctor and was practicing in a very high-end city. You would never expect it. And in a very high-end office. So if you were to pull into the parking lot and see the building, it looked A+, glamorous. I wouldn't hesitate walking in. So after I gathered all this information and told the law firm, and they in turn told the client, they didn't want to stop there. So they hired me to go in and pose as a possible patient to undergo the same surgery. So I went in and saw this doctor that was unlicensed and got a quote and got all the paperwork, and they were able to use that and prove that this doctor was still practicing, that he in fact was going to perform another surgery on me. And I actually went in on the day of surgery just because we didn't want him to be able to say, oh, I was going to cancel the night before, and we didn't want to leave anything to the defense. on the other side. So actually went all the way up into the point to right before I was administered any kind of sedatives and so forth. And we were able to gather a ton of evidence on this doctor and identify who he was. So the law firm was able to reach an undisclosed amount settlement with the doctor. I also know that he didn't have a license, so he couldn't lose his license, but I know that he is on probation and he is clearly never going to perform any kind of medical procedure in the United States ever again. And his information was blasted out there. So if anybody were to even Google his name, they'll see it. I was working for the Rossen law firm on a case here in South Florida. And the client was accused of sexually being inappropriate with a female that he had dated on a few occasions. It was early in their dating period and so forth. And our client had a lot to lose. He was a very wealthy individual, but not only that, he's well known. If I said his name, you would know his name. He had built his business from absolutely nothing, and good morals, good man. Anybody you speak to had nothing but positive things to say about this individual. And this female made a huge accusation. So I was able to look into the female and go back several years. And I was able to uncover that she had done, this was her third time doing this to somebody, obviously, that had something to lose work-wise and monetarily. And the first two individuals that she had accused this of, they paid her off and they signed NDAs. They only did it because they didn't want their name being dragged through the mud, even though they didn't do anything wrong. They just didn't want their name out there and, this accusation out there. So I was able to uncover things that were hidden away for years. I was able to speak to her old neighbors, her old friends who had clearly given me so many stories of her being dishonest, having no morals, no guidelines to where she will stop. And her sole motivation was clearly money. And not that there's anything wrong with OnlyFans, but we were able to also find her on OnlyFans where she was actually talking about this incident and bragging about making an accusation and getting money from previous men because they were so afraid of her. So this was all, I was able to gather all this information, this evidence, and she really quickly dropped her case and she walked away, and I don't think anybody ever heard from her again. So that was a really good feel-good scenario because this guy, he was just a good man and just a good person overall. And having somebody make up something so disgusting in this day and age, such as rape or being touched inappropriately, just really takes away from the victims out there, from real victims. And so I was really happy to help the firm and help this individual. You as a person, you have a right. I'm former law enforcement. I feel that you should always call 911, use law enforcement whenever you can, call a lawyer, but don't ever hesitate to advocate for yourself. Use every resource you have out there. It's better to have 4 eyes, 6 eyes, 3 people, or 9 people working for you to help you uncover your case, especially if you feel like you're not being taken seriously or somebody is not believing you. Don't hesitate. Don't be embarrassed. Always feel free to reach out to myself or anybody from my team. We're here for you to help you uncover any facts or help your case, whether it's small or big.